Hey Slowpokes, it's Source 101. Welcome back to Worldbuilding Wednesdays. Sorry if you hear any, bunch of rustling. That's just me adjusting my earbud microphones. So, getting right into it. This episode, the plot of Madame Munch's Culinary Institute for the Supernaturally Gifted. So, on his shortly before his 19th birthday, Theo Nguyen, a Vietnamese American who still lives with his older brother and his mom, who's a single mother, in a small apartment above their Vietnamese restaurant. Theo is a foodie, and his munchie is called stir fry. As explained last episode, he could swap places with stuff about the midpoint between their centers of gravity. So he gets a mysterious letter in the mail offering a chance to win a full ride scholarship to Madame Munch's Culinary Institute for the Supernaturally Gifted if he attends one free semester and passes the midterm exams. Or not midterm, but first semester exams. Or I think it was first semester. No. Yes. No. Yes. So, no. So, he's attending 2 semesters free of charge. And if he passes the midterm exams, he'll get a full ride scholarship to Madame Munch's Culinary Institute for the Supernaturally Gifted, a prestigious bigwig culinary institute in the north end of Boston. So, naturally, his mother, they are not doing so hot financially. I mean, they can afford all of their bills and stuff, but they can't really do much else other than pay the bills and the cost of living and whatnot. So they're just sort of surviving. They're not really growing, which is not good. But if Theo does this, he'll be able to go to college and he'll be able to make a lot of money. And most importantly, they don't have to pay for it. So naturally, his mom ship him off to Madame Munch's Culinary Institute for the Supernaturally Gifted. So it's important to know that people with these superpowers are not super well known, and the government doesn't really mess with them for indeterminate reasons that are never expanded upon. So his superpower isn't really super well known outside of his household. He doesn't really use it all that often because he just doesn't find any need to, except for getting his older brother away from the coffee machine or something. And so he goes there and he meets some of his other classmates who also got the same opportunity. He meets immediately what are going to be his main friend group is Mary Jane, full name Rosemary Jane, the stoner whose munchie is Pesto. She can control plants and stuff. And he meets Sabrina, and he also meets Fred Canola and Raspberry Daiquiri, and that's sort of the main group is I forgot Raspberry Daiquiri's actual name. Oh no, okay, so it was Rosemary Jane, Raspberry Daiquiri, whose name I forget, Tony Briggs, Sabrina Munchie, and Fred Canola, and Theo Nguyen. And those are sort of the main group. So, anyway, they go through their first semester. And what their first semester is all about is learning how to use your munchie in the kitchen during combat, because naturally combat's going to occur at some point for the midterm exam, and so they're trying to get them prepared for that. And like in the field and all of that, and like a bunch of different areas, and how to look for food, and how to forage, and how to make sure everything meets the USDA standards and all that. So they go through that. It's pretty rough. It's very into it, and it's sort of like a high school drama because of there's not much else to do on campus but attend classes. Um, but it's not really like high school because it's not. They go there and then they go home and ooh drama. It's filled with parties and stuff, and then they get into the second semester. And the second semester is the entire semester is the midterm exam. So they get explained the rules that it's this big bracket tournament, and it's seeded based on your grades in the first semester. And so each like cooking competition within the tournament it has what's called three courses, right? It's set in an arena that is created by the Munchie called plating, creates tangible illusions. So it's this big, like, it could be open fields and a deserted island in the middle of the ocean, winter wonderland, underground, near an active volcano, or a fake active volcano, of course, in an actual sterile kitchen, in a circus environment, whatever, right? It's a bunch of different places. And so they, for the first course, have to cook something. They have to cook against each other, and then present that to the judges. Then whoever wins that gets 2 points. Or no, it's not 2 points. It's whoever gets that gets a point, and then there's a combat session where they both go at it in the arena with their munchies. And first one to knock the opponent down is it's not until they knock them down, it's until the judges call it. So once someone has the clear and definitive advantage and there's no hope for the other person, that's when the judges call it. And then whoever wins that gets 1 point. And then that process is repeated again. And then in the final round, cooking is rewarded 2 points and combat is awarded 2 points. So then and then any tiebreaker there is decided by a vote amongst the judges. So, well, I mean, everything's decided by the judges. Who gets the point is decided by the judges. But if there's a tie, then the winner is decided by the judges. And so all of the characters that I listed in the previous episode, those are the characters that didn't drop out. Because there are other like miscellaneous side characters, but they dropped out, so they don't matter. It's those main characters from last week, that go through all of this. And the winner gets a full ride scholarship for a 4-year degree in a degree of their choosing, starting after that semester. And this is just an extra semester tacked on for free. Like, they get a full actual 4 years after that. Because these 2 semesters actually take place within the final half of a regular university school year. So there's that. And so it's a really tough battle, competition. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends. And then it's like revealed halfway through that Sabrina is the great granddaughter of Massimo Muccier, Madame Munch herself, and that she, if she wins, gets to become the next headmistress. So she has been pulling the strings the whole time to manipulate everyone into being her goal. So instead of it just being a free for all, the characters, the main group, sort of gets it in their heads that, oh man, what? And now they have like a common enemy, so they have to like work together until all of the main characters, or like the super main characters, everyone's still a main character because they're still in the thing, right? But it's like the bigwig ones, the main group that I just said earlier, of Theo, Rigatoni, Fry Guy, Gaia, Raspberry Daiquiri. They all and Sabrina, of course, are all pitted against each other. And so they're all pitted against each other, and so it's sort of like a bittersweet end that Sabrina's like ruthlessly going through getting stuff, because her ability, mise en place, is that she gets to control everything with wooden crosses as if they were puppets. So she uses that to advantage in cooking, where she can orchestrate many different tasks at once that I have to actually like go through and do all the stuff. And on top of that, she can manipulate the things in the environment to attack her opponents. Or even turn her opponents into puppets and do the whole why are you hitting yourself but with sharp objects sort of deal. So she's just like ruthlessly, very determined, cutting through everything, cutting through everybody. And those who are competing against each other, like friends are friends, right? But like everyone, coincidentally, completely, totally not by choice by the orchestrators of this event, like needs this scholarship to like progress in life or whatever. So they don't hold back for their friends. It's like a total tough battle. And then and there's this running joke throughout the entire story that all Theo has to do is learn how to perform a German suplex. So at the beginning, it's like, oh, what's the best way to incapacitate your opponent? And then someone tells Theo isn't exactly paying attention, so someone whispers over to him like, hey, the answer is German suplex. And so he like shouts out German suplex, and the teacher's like, no. What? Who told what? No. And so he gets embarrassed. But then the next several times, the idea of Theo performing a German suplex is repeatedly like ingrained throughout the story, right? And so but then Theo's argument throughout the whole thing on why he's not going to German suplex people is because he's just not strong enough. He just can't do it. That could break someone's neck. It could be dangerous, right? So all of this is building up in the final battle, because all of his friends like go down, because Theo knows what he's doing. He's very skilled, very talented. He's worked very hard up to this point. It's not like he's overpowered per se. It's not like he's like a JoJo character where he's just like immediately given like the biggest punchy boy. It's he's just got a very unique skill set and a unique perspective on things, and he has put in the work and dedication to get to where he is now, skill wise. So he manages to very narrowly though defeat all of his friends, and they're like, it could be worse. Sabrina could win. And so then they, with respect and like brotherment, they Theo moves up the ladder, same as Sabrina, but Sabrina doesn't earn the respect. She's betrayed everyone's trust. So then the final championship match is between Theo and Sabrina. And so their thing is that they're on a Icelandic cliffside, right? So they're having to forage like mushrooms and fish and crab and puffin and other assorted waterfowl and birds and stuff in order to serve as their meals. So Theo's going through the motions, right? He's getting the stuff. His munchie isn't like super useful during this. It's mostly just like a combat thing. He doesn't switching places with something does not really help in most scenarios. So Sabrina is able to use this to her advantage and like totally gather all the ingredients. So Theo loses the first cooking match, right, to Sabrina. Theo, I think, makes a he like remembers the power of friendship or some stupid thing like that, and he harnesses the teachings of Fred Canola, fried guy, and he makes fried like a instead of fried chicken, fried puffin. Meanwhile, Sabrina is creating a very like hearty king crab dish that she was able to fish out of the water with her mise en place ability because she's just so talented that she can make the crabs walk up onto land. And so the judges are like, this is great, but you don't really like deep fry entire puffins. You can't like really make a chicken fried puffin. So we're gonna give this one to Fancy Crab Girl. And Theo's like, damn, I knew that was weak. Sorry, Canola. And like Fry Guy in the background is like in the middle of nowhere is like, I feel like someone did a good job, but I don't know who or why. And then it comes back to the battle. Then is the combat, and Sabrina, like their countryside is a very open area, right? There's some rocks in places, but mainly it's just sort of like an elevation thing. So they just sort of have to duke it out. And again, Theo doesn't really have a combat munchie. His is like utility at best in some scenarios. So Sabrina's able to like throw stuff at him from long distance, control the puffins to attack. There are a lot of puffins in this Icelandic cliffside. I don't know why I'm obsessed with the idea, but there are just a bunch of puffins there. I think puffins are cute, and I like to see them used as weapons by crazy JoJo My Hero Academia food people. I don't have to explain myself to you. Puffin Land is happening. Anyway, so Theo's getting dive bombed by freakish Iceland birds. And he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how this is going to work. So he, like, goes to a tree and swaps places with the tree as a shield. So he gets the idea, oh, wait, I can swap places with people. So while Sabrina's bringing down the birds on him, he, like, dashes through the field. He goes around. He weaves through the things. He only gets attacked 15 times instead of 20. And he makes it to Sabrina, and because he's by this point he's like pretty resilient. Because his munchie isn't very like combat oriented. He has had to be able to take some hits in order to make it through to this point. So, and Theo, more often than not, just excels at all of the cooking. Because if you excel at all of the cooking, and only win like one combat, then you automatically, by just like how the points work out, you win. That's pretty much what Theo has done. He's clutched like one combat, a a bracket spot, and he's just done really good at all the cooking. When it comes to Sabrina, Sabrina has lived this life. Like she is descendant of the headmistresses of the Culinary Institute. So Theo's up against a formidable force. So, but he manages to grab Sabrina, right? And as she's bringing down the birds on him, he swaps places with her. And then she gets hit by the birds. Now, Sabrina isn't really used to getting hits because she just usually like controls the opponent or the environment to just immediately crush them. Sabrina has breezed through this entire competition. She's just leagues above everybody. And only like matches Theo in skill. So she gets decked in the face by a huge fistful of angry bird. And she just gets knocked over. And the judges call it there. Because, while Theo was being attacked, he could keep running. But while Sabrina was being donked up, she just immediately like went out. I mean, she's not like unconscious, but like she's seeing stars. Just because the sheer impact force she brought these birds down with. And so the judges call it. Honor goes to Theo. They're currently tied. Second food competition, right? They've got to do something different. They got to shake it up some. They're no longer doing just your dinky dinner. They've got to come up with like a very elegant the theme for this one, rather than just restaurant food, is like top tier fine dining. And so Theo's got to think differently. He actually harvests some honey from a beehive that's in the forest. And he actually learned how to do so effectively on one of his many mandatory family trips down to Vietnam to see his extended family. Of course, paid for by his extended family because his mom only makes enough to get by. And his brother is already putting as much as he can towards paying the bills with her. So they can't really do much in terms of vacationing department, but his extended family can. So he's learned how to appropriately harvest the honey from these beehives. And of course, because this is sort of like a Scandinavian area, the honey is going to taste different than Vietnamese honey. So he's got to work with that. Anyway, he wants to do a sort of a honey glazed fish dish, seafood dish, fish fillet. So he has to then go out and he's got to use like a tree branch or something to spear these fish. Now again, he is familiar with spear fishing. His extended a lot of families in Vietnam and the area have like harpoon guns and whatnot, and or fish by trade. So he goes out and catches instead of like an actual fish, he catches squid. Now, I'm not actually sure whether a bunch of squid is native to the Iceland, nor if it can be found that close to the shore. But this is all tangible illusions. Suspend your disbelief for like 30 seconds here, guys. This video is already running long. So Theo then has to sort of like backpedal, like, okay, how do I work at this instead? So he's having to combine all of these other sauces and whatnot, and stuff like salt and soy sauce and most like seasonings, right? That's provided. You're not going to have to forage for everything. It's just like the big stuff, like your protein or your greens or whatever. That's all what's being foraged for. So Theo, he sort of like turns it into a sweet and savory, sort of salty calamari thing, and he uses a charcoal grill. And then he serves it with some microgreens that are in the area and like little mini flowers that he's learned to pick out which ones are the good ones and are edible and such. Which is actually a lesson he learned from Gaia, Mary Jane, the Tina Stoner. So he is like harnessing the power of friendship or whatever to create this dish. Um, and hold on. Yeah, he's so he yeah, so he and Sabrina was sticking with her seafood idea and actually did manage to catch some fish. So she was instead doing sort of like a sushi type deal where she was making rice and she was working with very fine plating and whatnot. So she presents that to the judges, and it's sort of like a minimalist tasting dinner kind of thing. While um, Theo is over here making charcoal grilled squid with a sweet glaze sauce and a fresh salad. And so the judges pick his dish instead because Sabrina's was unimaginative and did not push the boundaries of what the judges feel could have been done like Theo did. So Sabrina is like, oh, but I've done, how dare you? I can't take this. And so she is all riled up for the combat. Theo, so this combat is slightly different because now it's sort of, okay. I'm making sure that camera isn't garbage. Hold on. I gotta do a thing. Okay, so, sorry about that. So, this combat is slightly different. Now there's a storm that they have to work with, a thunderstorm specifically. So, um, Theo can't really lift, right? He can't like lift up very heavy things. But where he lacks in lifting ability, he makes up for in carrying ability. he can carry a super heavy thing for a very long distance. He just can't really pick up that thing first. If he's given that object, then he can carry it to where it needs to go, and he is more than happy to drop it or even like toss it in some instances. So he uses this to his advantage, right? Because they're on a cliffside. Their whole thing is that they are on a downhill onto a flat area, and that flat area is also raised off of the ground, off of the ocean. They're on like a cliff island sort of deal. So, it's a pretty large island, right? There's a small forest in one area. There's a bunch of rocks in another. The shore has all of the bits and like some like tiny tide pools in the crags. So if you jumped down, you'd have to work for a while to get back up, but you could. Of course, not in the rain. It would suck to do it in the rain. Probably impossible for a normal person. But these foodies know what they're doing with the superpowers and such. Anyway, but there's a very tall cliff area, and then there's the rest of the island. And so, while it's pouring this rain, they sort of get into a confrontation where they're sliding down the hill. And Sabrina is using her munchie to like grab the trees and like bend them down to sort of grab onto. But Theo's got a better idea. So Theo can take some hits, right? So he tries to roll over to crash into Sabrina on the way down this hill. Because of the tangible illusion, this hill sequence seems to go on longer than it actually does. But this is just how fast they're all doing it, and how it's not completely realistic proportions of everything, of space and whatnot, but it's enough to work out for the sake of the story. So Theo tries to like roll over to crash into Sabrina, but more importantly, to hit a large rock jutting out of the ground. Now you may be thinking, Tortoise, why the heck would he want to hit the large rock? That sounds very painful. And yeah, it is going to be. So he hits the rock, right? Wind sort of gets knocked out of him, and he manages to crawl on top of the rock. And Sabrina manages to, instead of like grabbing onto the tree to like save herself from the hill, she's already gotten to the ground. So she instead uses her ability to make the trees rip off each other's branches so that she can use it as sort of like a large weapon. So Theo is on this rock face down to the ground, getting his composure back while he's being pelted with rain. So Sabrina, who is way more out of breath because of the hill than Theo is because of the rock, manages to sort of limp over because she hurt her little leg in the fall. Well, because, she's had a cushy life. And you may be thinking, well, if she's had such a cushy life, how did Sabrina make it through the other combats? Well, she has the ability to turn stuff into puppets, so she wasn't making the opponent basically forfeit. She was making her environment conspire with her. But this environment is very non-conducive to that because she can't just make the ground do something different. It's got to be different stuff. So, anyway, she's taking this large branch to swing at Theo to like crack some ribs or whatever, because all damage sustained in combat will still be you'll still have that damage in the following cooking and combat competitions. So and all of the different things happen on different days, but between the different bracket positions, all three of those courses happen on the same day. So you get recovery time in between them. It's just if you maintain combat during the first round, then you'll still have that damage in the second and third. So she wants to hopefully break some ribs. But then Theo sees her approach, and as Sabrina raises the stick up, he swaps places with the boulder under him. Or it's not a boulder, it's more just like a overly sized rock. Theo is kind of a scrawny guy. So he swaps places with the rock, so now he's on the bottom and the rock is on the top and he's facing up. And Sabrina hits the rock. The reverb sort of hurts her arm a little because of the recoil, I guess. And then Theo manages to use all four of his limbs to shove the rock into Sabrina. It doesn't break any of her bones, but she is out. And so the judges are like debating on whether or not to call it. Sabrina then uses her munchie on herself while she's struggling to stay conscious, and she pretty much just like takes the awake portion of her mind and like forces it out. And she is like firing on all cylinders right now. Adrenaline's going crazy, and she, using her ability, is not letting her adrenaline die down. Again, very dangerous, but she is desperate. She is like entered full villain mode. She doesn't care that she used to pretend to be friends with Theo. It all things are out. And that maneuver was actually taught to him, the pushing the boulder up, by Tony Briggs, Rigatoni. Because Rigatoni, he would use the shells of escargot, his munchie, to pick up heavy things and throw them at enemies. So he sort of had that in mind when he did it. Ergo, the power of friendship prevails again. I know, I'm so awesome. So Theo is now in the lead because the judges have declared that he won that combat. So Sabrina has won the first cooking competition. Then Theo has won the combat and the following cooking competition and the following combat. So now all that leaves is the final course, where both things are worth 2 points each. So, cooking competition. It has freshly rained, and all of the stuff has sort of spread out. And several years have passed in the arena, but not like in actual combat. It was just a couple seconds, but basically the arena, the field, has aged up some. So, all of the animal populations are just slightly different. Different plants are now growing. So it's the same environment, but there's different stuff there. So, and I should mention all of the judges are their professors. And the professors have been trained very carefully as to not like have any bias. How's the time doing? Oh, dang. I've been talking about this for 40 freaking minutes. Alright. Anyway. So, I don't know how I was talking about this for 40 minutes. Anyway. So, Theo, yeah, my brain is dying. So, the final cooking competition, the final course, if you will, the cooking and then the combat. So now, their thing is to create a light and fresh um, uh, finishing course. So Theo immediately goes like, "Oh, I should make." Sorry about the weird cut. Anyway, Theo's like, "I should make a pickled salad." So he grabs all like the microgreens and stuff and like fresh herbs, and he's remembering what his friend Raspberry Daiquiri was telling him about how the subtlest of interactions between everything should be fine tuned, and so he is looking for the best ingredients, the best vegetables, the best herbs. He's making the best, most accurate brine he can, and Sabrina is still sticking with seafood. Um, she manages to fish up some fresh fish off the edge of the cliff. And there's this traditional French cooking method, which I forget the name of, where basically you get a fish with like a lemon and some herbs, and you wrap it in parchment paper, and I think you like poach it, or poach it then bake, or bake then poach. I think you poach it. Anyway, she does that to it, right? And Sabrina wins, like flat out. Like pickled salad, and there's not even that much of it. Like, what is this? Some Salt Bay tasting menu? No, get it out of here. So, that's Theo loses that one, right? So now they're tied, 3-3. Um, and then there's the final combat. Uh, Now the arena is then aged forward more this combat, so that like earthquakes have happened and trees fall over. The ground is fragile. There's cracks running through. Anything could happen, and then the combat begins. Theo doesn't give Sabrina an opportunity to use her munchie. He just goes for it and just decks her, and he just keeps beating down, just and Sabrina is like taking it like a champ, and she's like sometimes getting hit in, but not long enough to actually do anything with her munchie, until she is knocked backwards far enough for her to use her munchie. Now it takes a lot of finesse to accurately string someone up as a puppet with mise en place, her munchie. So instead, she, for the first time, realizes she can use it on herself. So she attaches the cords to her other hand. So she's got the wooden cross in one hand, and her other hand has the cords. And she uses that to choke Theo out. Um, and Theo's trying to like put his fingers by his neck and do all of the tic-tac self-defense turn things, but it's just not working out for him. Eventually, he just has to headbutt Sabrina from behind. Or he throws his head back to headbutt Sabrina. And then Sabrina, her munchie, like dissipates, and he's able to get out. And so then uh, he's trying to like tackle her to the ground, and she's trying to spin him over to get him. But every time she gets on top of him to like pin him down and choke him out or whatever, he uses his munchie to swap places, so that he is always on top, beating her up, until Sabrina then tries to kick him, but Theo's like, "Hey, wait! I did this move, like 30 minutes ago," and then swaps places with her so that he's on the bottom, and uses all four of his limbs to chuck her off, much like he did with the boulder. Now they have sort of worked their way up the tall part of the cliff, and it's not wet at all, so traction is good. So it's not like they're going to slip down at every opportunity. Um, so Sabrina manages to get her ground, and then but she has enough distance so that she uses her munchie on him and attaches all the strings to him, so now he's the puppet and she makes him walk to the edge, right? And but the ground is all wibble womple, so she like gets her foot stuck in a crack and she trips almost, but then catches herself. But that's just enough time for her mise en place to not give him any instructions to do. So he is able to grab the cord and pull her towards him, but Sabrina reacts just in the nick of time and turns that into a tackle and knocks Theo off the edge of the cliff. And Theo then grabs onto her, but she's standing her ground, and so she's the only thing preventing him from falling to presumably his death, but of course it's an illusion, so he wouldn't actually die. And the judges have not called it yet. So Sabrina's gloating like, I'm the only thing keeping you from failure and dishonor. What do you think of that? And he says, he's like, oh no, I'm on the edge. There's no way I can win. And then he's like, oh wait, I have superpowers too. And he swaps places with her. And so now he is the only thing preventing her from falling, and then she immediately flips and is like, come on, Theo, we're friends. You wouldn't let me fall, would you? That would be such a horrible thing to do, and you wouldn't do that because you're so nice and kind and generous. And he's like, yes, I am. I am all of those adjectives. Why don't I pull you up then? I can't let you fall to your death. That would be disrespectful. And she's like, yeah, totally, that would be disrespectful, so come on. And so he pulls her up, right? But before Sabrina has the opportunity to betray him again, he grabs onto her, right? And he German suplexes her down the cliff. Oh, it's so satisfying. The entire story has been building up to him finally German suplexing his opponent. And I know my retelling of it isn't, like, doing it justice, but, like, you guys have no idea. This was a long time coming. And then Sabrina is out, like, completely out. She is, like, passed out. She needs to go to the medical ward. She's done. The judges call it. He gets the extra 2 points. Theo wins the full ride scholarship 5-3. And he used it using his skills and those taught to him by his friends. And I guess you could say the power of friendship really did prevail. And before you guys start puking up cotton candy and rainbows at the thought of it, I'm going to end this episode here. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in next week. Time for the outro. Make sure to like and subscribe if you think I deserve any of those things, or don't if you think I don't, delight in the side of my suffering. Make sure you ring this notification bell on your way out. She works very hard informing you of the 3 times a year I actually upload something. And if you can set your notification settings to all while you're at it, that would save her on paperwork, me on labor costs, and everyone a whole lot of stress. Well, anyway, thank you guys again for watching. Make sure to say bye to Gilbert on your way out. Later!